Welcome to the Baseball Insiders. I am Adam Weinrib, joined as always by FanSided's MLB Insider Robert Murray, and we will be live until the Pittsburgh Pirates stop walking Cubs after Paul Skenes' exit. So we'll see you till Thursday. Usually we do this show 3:30 on Monday and then again on Thursday. We'll just keep doing this Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We'll still be live Thursday. All eyes were on Pittsburgh. That game delivered, but in a way no one could have expected. And at the end of the day, the Pittsburgh Pirates won anyway. We'll talk all about that and what we saw from Skenes, perhaps most importantly. The Blue Jays had a wild weekend as well, with Vlad Jr. helping to lead the way. Is he making Toronto's deadline decision even tougher than it already was? Plus a JD Martinez homer that broke Braves fans' hearts, and the Baltimore Orioles are rolling. Plus your questions live now with FanSided's MLB Insider Robert Murray. Robert, live from Wisconsin, Sheboygan. Sheboygan is live once again. Thank you for joining.
Hey, thank you for having me, as always. Canyon, Mr. Pirates fan who is a loyal listener to the show. I will actually be at the Pirates game tonight against the Brewers. So hopefully for our next show, I'll have even more insight about the Pirates. But yeah, good to be here. We got plenty to talk about. Paul Skenes finally debuted, thankfully. We have a lot of trade deadline thoughts, actually, so that should be pretty cool. Adam Weinrib, how are you?
I am good. I hate to break it there. I was not able to watch the Paul Skenes debut live. Oh, yeah. Sorry, everybody. I'm very, very sorry. I was instead at Saturday's events at the Westminster Dog Show, interviewing dogs in the Meet the Breeds booth, 45 breeds, watching some dock diving, watching some agility, hanging with the Chow Chows. I would describe it as surprisingly unprofessional. Like, it felt like the diving dogs going into the water were just like some dogs. Like, you would think it would be like uniquely skilled water dogs, and it was just like there's a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel there. There was like a little Boston Terrier that didn't want to go in the water. It kind of felt like, hey, choose your own adventure. If you want to dive into the water, go for it. But we were having a great time hanging out with some dogs. I missed it live, and so I will be relying on Robert to help fill me in, but it looked like the Splinker was going 100, and it looked like all things were going pretty well until things fell apart. And if Paul Skenes and the Pirates showed you enough to be confident in his next start, and you don't have a DraftKings account, we are offering a fantastic sign-up bonus for all new users. Those new customers can place a $5 first bet on any sport to instantly claim 150 in bonus bets when you sign up with our code Baseball Insider. Hey, can any of our watchers and listeners recite this verbatim at this point? Send me a recording. Maybe I'll just play yours next time. You'll also receive one single game parlay reward every day. The best part is you will get both rewards even if your first bet loses. Using our code Baseball Insider, singular, not only get to these bonuses, but it also directly supports our podcast. If you've been considering signing up for DraftKings, make sure to use the code Baseball Insider to maximize your first bets. This offer is only available to new customers who are 21 plus and physically present in legal gambling states. Please remember to always gamble responsibly. Check the episode description for the full terms of the offer to see if you qualify. And if you want to be cool like Canyon, the Pirates fan that Robert shouted out earlier, join us in the Discord. We'd love to have you. Get your questions in for Robert and myself, but mostly Robert, as the trade deadline approaches early in the Discord.
Actually, absolutely. And also, since Canyon is in the Discord, I will wish him a happy birthday. It was his birthday, I believe it was yesterday. So happy birthday, Canyon. And your gift is that you own Jacob Zanola. So that is your gift.
Yeah. And it seems like Sleepy Jacob maybe didn't show up today. So you own Jake. You would have owned him anyway, and you just further own him at this juncture.
Yeah, that Tubby is sound asleep.
Yeah. As for Josh's question, did Biscuit win the dog show? We didn't bring him because it would have been too spooked, I think. But looking around the grounds, there were a lot of random dogs where I was like, oh, I guess you could just bring a dog. I don't know if they would have frowned on it in the media credential booth. But hey, they let my wife in. We had a good time. I would recommend that for everybody. And they're doing Best in Show tomorrow. So I might just head back, see more dogs, see if Biscuit can take home the gold. But those dogs may not have all been throwing 100 consistently, but Paul Skenes sure was. He had flashes in this game after watching the highlights where he did look pretty much exactly like what we thought he might become. Unsurprisingly, the data was very kind to him. But pre-game, it looked like weather was going to be a problem. Mid-game, the weather was certainly a problem. And after that, the bullpen was a huge problem. Somehow the Pirates won a crazy one anyway. So don't let somebody else's walks muddy things too much for you. What will you remember from this spectacle?
I'll remember this as just an absolutely crazy game because the Pirates got out to an immediate lead. Paul Skenes was shoving, and then he exited in the 5th inning, and the Pirates suddenly forgot how to throw a strike, and they ended up walking in a bunch of runs. The Cubs took a lead, and then Yasmani Grandal hit an absolute bomb, 3-run homer, give the Pirates the lead, and they eventually ended up winning that game. It had the Pirates fans really worried, and rightfully so, because that was just a mess of a baseball game. In a lot of different facets, but it gave you a glimpse of what Paul Skenes can do. I mean, he can throw 100 plus miles an hour. He's got this splinter that's got vertical movement on it. It's just totally nasty. And there's not really another starting pitcher in baseball that's like him. There's obviously a lot of players or a lot of pitchers who throw really fast, but Skenes does it in a really unique way as a starter. And like there's some people who are giving him a hard time considering his ERA is what 6.75 or whatever it is right now. But Skenes, I mean, he looked really good. Obviously, like going forward, he's going to need to like harness that fastball command. He's going to need to he's going to have to refine his game a little bit. But the tools and everything that he's working with makes him one of one. And the Pirates have every reason to be optimistic. He flashed that against the Cubs, and they have every reason to expect him to get better and better from here. So I think it was a promising debut and showed just why the Pirates are so excited about him.
Any update on Skenes and Jones as the best 1-2 in baseball yet? Do we have a declarative word on that? Do we have a winner after one start? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't think so either, but it shows you how dangerous a prediction game can be. Holy smokes. But I did understand who made those comments again. I can't remember who it was.
I actually can't, I've already blocked it out. I can't remember either. It was like 3 days ago.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, it's like, I can understand where they're coming from because Skenes and Jared Jones, they look, they're as talented as any young pitchers in baseball at this point. And if they end up reaching their potential, then yeah, that conversation can be had. But after one start, I'm not ready to say that quite yet.
That's the Stephen A. Smith, roller coaster hot take. When you asked Stephen A. to cover baseball, he probably would have said on Friday, like, I think Jones and Skenes are already 1-2. As everybody jumping off the Knicks, the Knicks and the Timberwolves too. The two, like, all those sports shows on Friday were like, wow, could be sweeps, could be some unexpected teams in the conference finals. And then on Monday, it's like, it's over for both teams. They might be right this time, but still, it shows you why you shouldn't be too quick to that snap judgment.
No, 100%. Yeah, the hot take game is a very dangerous game to play. You will not see me entering those waters at all. I try to just provide facts, and that makes it much less sticky, to say the least.
Yeah. The thing with the hot take is that the second hot take is usually right because the first one is a big swing. Then the opposite happens. Then you swing in the other direction. You're more likely to be right on the second try, or it settles somewhere in the middle.
100%.
But Pirates fans should be obviously very excited by this. Does not get nastier than Skenes at his best. Forget the 353 average against. And hopefully Robert's able to, I probably will be checking in on the Pirates and Brewers again on Thursday's show, but right to the deadline now and using this weekend's action as a jumping off point, we did have the Blue Jays, who are one of the more disappointing teams by any metric so far this season, unless you were one of the people that didn't really believe in them in the first place. But otherwise, they've certainly let you down so far. Season highlight was Saturday. They overcome a 6-run deficit against the Twins, who brought their rotting sausage to Canada, somehow got through customs. But the Twins choked that one away. Vlad helps lead the way, goes 4 for 5. His numbers are now trending up. If you wrote him off a couple weeks ago, it's probably worth noting that obviously the stuff on Savant is absurd because he's always going to scald the baseball. But now he's up to, well over 270 on the year, the OPS plus at 119. Past 7 games hitting 448, past 15 games hitting 362. For those people who are like, MVP Vlad's never coming back, he's been here for the last 15 games, just waiting on that home run power, and all the stuff below the hood would indicate that it probably is coming soon. But because of how strange the Jays' start to the season has been, and the fact that we now have to ask ourselves the question, is good Vlad enough to drag this under 500 middling team up from where they are right now. Is he making Toronto's trade deadline decisions just a little bit tougher? Because they might be the number one purgatory team in baseball right now. They've got a ton of pitching specifically to sell if they do want to sell. But I don't know if you can put your finger on that button yet.
No, I don't think he can either. I mean, they're a few games under 500 right now. They're in last place in that division. They have a roster that has a lot of talent on it. And they even last year, they ended up giving up Gabriel Moreno and Gurriel in exchange for Dalton Varsho. And I mean, last year that trade obviously didn't look that great. But they went, that was a move that was kind of all in, but it also had a long-term view and outlook into it. So, I mean, I understood the logic behind it for sure. But as of right now, the Blue Jays, they have to consider a few different options here. It's whether you do a soft buy and part with some prospects. Do you go all in and part with some of your top prospects to try to make the postseason and make a playoff push? Or more realistically, do you do like a soft sell, or do you just lean into it and go all in with a sell? My guess is it's going to be some variation of a sell here. As of right now, there's plenty of time before the deadline here. So I want to make that clear. I'm not saying right now the Blue Jays are sellers, my column or whatever.
Yeah.
But they have 17 pending free agents in the next 2 years. A lot of them on the pitching side, but that also includes Vlad Jr. and Bo Bichette. Vlad Jr. has definitely shown in the last couple of weeks, as you said, that he's much better than he was to start the year. He's starting to look more like the MVP version of Vlad, except missing the power. But Bichette struggled, and his numbers offensively are significantly worse than they were last year. My guess is that since they're both signed through 2025, is that the Blue Jays are going to be more inclined to hold on to those players, and each Vlad Jr. and Bichette, and try to win in 2025. And guys that are on expiring contracts like Kikuchi or Yimi Garcia or Justin Turner or Kevin Kiermaier could end up being more realistic trade targets. And I mean, we're looking, Kikuchi is going to end up getting a lot of interest with the way that he's pitching. Yimi Garcia too, he's got an ERA that's under 1 right now. Really intriguing arm for the bullpen. Saved a couple games for the Jays as well. Justin Turner, I mean, veteran guy, decent bat at this point of his career. Kiermaier is still an elite defensive outfielder. Offensively has struggled a little bit. So, I mean, it's not exactly like a great great list of players that they probably are going to be listening on. But it would at least give them some prospects to build around, but also not sacrifice their ability to compete in 2025, which I think is really important. And I will say, if the Blue Jays go from their Ohtani sweepstakes this offseason and all the reports saying that he was on a flight to Toronto and signing there to a few months later, well, obviously not getting him, and then a few months later selling off and kind of punting on the 2024 season, that'd be a pretty tough pill to swallow for the Jays fans. And I mean, it's been a really difficult year, but that would make it really tough. And I think that's something that organization has to consider as well. But they're not at that point yet where they have to make a decision. They're still a few weeks away from that for sure.
I'll add Trevor Richards as well, who is 2 days away from turning 31 years old. Final year of team control in Toronto. Another rock solid year, 0.842 WHIP at this point in time. So if you're looking to add to the 6th inning, 7th inning, that's somebody that you would target. I think the Blue Jays have some vibes to consider before they make this decision as well. And add in the Alek Manoah question, who they'd gotten almost nothing from going on a year and a half now, finally has his first good start, and not just a good start, but yesterday sort of looks like the guy he'd been all along in 2022, in terms of taking command of the mound, not just results. That's somebody who I would say at this point, if you're looking at a soft sell, you're really hoping at 2-3 more of those that you can convince somebody else that there is a buy low candidate there rather than just someone who's closer to the end of their career than the beginning.
Yeah, 100%. And by the way, like the Trevor Richards shout was a really good one. He's someone, I remember the Brewers got him. I can't remember who they got him from. And then they immediately traded him to the Jays. I believe it was for Rowdy Tellez, which, I mean, he seemed like kind of like an afterthought in that deal. And he's been useful for them. So, I mean, that's a really good shout by you. Gresham 5, I'm sorry for displeasing you. I do hope that you enjoyed your Gresham 5 time this past weekend. But I'm sorry about your Jays. They're not looking too hot right now.
For now. But I do think you're right that probably some variety of intellectual retool, a retool with a monocle, not just a huge sell. But hey, there are some pieces here who are going to walk anyway, who, let's be honest with ourselves, take some truth serum, have not had the impact that we'd hope they would regardless. Hey, would you really miss Kevin Kiermaier if we traded him? Would you really miss, can you handle 4 months without Yimi Garcia? Hopefully, because we're trying to replenish. We're not trying to tear it down.
No, exactly. And replenish and not tear it down. I think this is going to end up being the name of the game for the Blue Jays at the deadline. That's my guess. A lot can change for sure, but that's kind of what I'm thinking right now.
And look, you can't tell the AL East story right now without talking about the team that is rolling the competition. And it wasn't surprising, and nobody's jaws on the floor that the Baltimore Orioles are good. But if you want to do we were talking about a hot take column before this started of just like Orioles good. Yep, Orioles are good. I think you can safely make that judgment at this point. They matched the best 38 game start in franchise history over the weekend, 26-12 through their first 38. The other two times they've done that, 1969 and 1970. That's 2 pennants and a World Series. That's also notably a really long time ago. So 2-part discussion here. Have the Orioles officially emerged as the team to beat in the AL that I think everybody was expecting them to, especially with so much talent coming? And the second part of this, you want to talk early trade deadline stuff. They've got an overflow of talent. They can't put it all on the major league roster. Heston Kjerstad went down to AAA again today. There's a reason the Orioles over the weekend were connected to every available reliever. Ryan Helsley, Jordan Romano, potentially. Bednar, I've seen a little bit of rumblings. Any national, Harvey, maybe you pick him back up. And then also Justin Verlander. John Heyman, I think, was like, hey, Justin Verlander might be willing to, waive that no trade clause, get back to Baltimore, close to his Virginia home. That feels a little bit more outlandish, but the Orioles talent stockpile is the reason that they're going to be connected to anyone who could possibly fill a need 2 months from now.
Oh, 100%. And to answer the first part of your question, I do think at this point the Orioles look like the best team in the American League, and their record even suggests that same thing. They have the best record in the American League right now. But if you look, you have the Yankees that are 27-15, you have the Guardians that are 25-16, the Twins that are 24-16, and then the Royals who are 25-17. And there's a bunch of other teams that are over 500, but there's plenty of competition for the best team in the American League right now. But I think of all those teams, I think the Orioles are probably the most sustainable considering the amount of talent that they have offensively, pitching wise. The questions in the rotation are absolutely real. And I think that's something that they have to prioritize ahead of the deadline. And their new ownership group really showed that they're willing to spend both financially and also in terms of prospects when they ended up trading for Corbin Burnes. So that has me kind of optimistic that they will be able to be aggressive in that closer pursuit, much more so than under the previous ownership. But I'll tell you, there's a bunch of different guys that you mentioned. Ryan Helsley, I think, makes a lot of sense as a trade target. The guy that I'm still kind of skeptical about as a trade target for these other 29 teams is going to be in David Bednar. I don't expect Bednar to be available. He's controllable. He's a Pittsburgh guy, and everything that I have heard suggests that Bob Nutting absolutely loves him. So I can't imagine the Pirates are going to be in a hurry to move. They've gotten a lot of trade interest for him in the past, let me tell you. Nothing to my knowledge has ever gotten close, but I don't think they're going to be motivated to move him. I think the Orioles, when it's all said and done, are going to have to look elsewhere for a closer. But Helsley makes sense. Mason Miller, I think it's probably unlikely that he's moved, but the Orioles, if there's any team that has the prospect capital to get it done, it's them. And it's also that prospect capital where they can trade it for somebody, but they're also just going to have just so much depth and talent on that roster where this run for them is going to just be extended. And Orioles fans have every reason to be optimistic about their long-term outlook here.
Yeah, I've already forgotten to include Mason Miller in these bullpen conversations just because I'm like, Come on. Like we did it last show. Come on. They're not going to trade Mason Miller. But again, it can't be ruled out. Anything Oakland A's related. Nobody's rooted in Oakland. We know that. So
No, they're rooted in Sacramento.
Yeah, but rooted in Sacramento for a couple of years, then potentially rooted in Las Vegas, presuming they can get the funding to build a stadium that has large enough roots to withstand a potential earthquake. Look, I don't know where the A's are going to end up. I don't know if Mason Miller survives the deadline, but I'm going to hold out hope until we get something more concrete. I'm going to say Miller stays put. But Ryan Helsley right now feels like the top closer available. And it's May 13th, but feels like the top name we're going to hear bandied about this July.
I think that's a pretty fair thing to say. I think the Cardinals, they're in a really odd spot right now, considering where they're at in the standings and just how they're trending. And but Helsley makes a lot of sense. There's so many other players on that roster that could be trade candidates too. I mean, you look at Dylan Carlson, you look at Paul Goldschmidt. I mean, who was he struggling? Holy cow. Arenado struggled too. I mean, there's a lot of really good players on the team that are really struggling right now. So that also further complicates their trade deadline outlook. But Ryan Helsley definitely figures to be one of the more attractive guys. And we'll see if he's moved. But the way that they're playing right now, definitely can't rule out a Helsley trade. I mean, I don't think anything's imminent by any means. I want to make that clear. But just going forward.
If you got questions, drop them in the chat, of course, before we sign off any more deadline cues. But I do want to mention the one game that was nearly iconic, Atlanta and the Mets this weekend. I was again at the dog show. That meant I was across the street from Citi Field, and I was like, yeah, should I? I mean, I can't do both, right? I can't. We can't do a double, And obviously, I'm trying to make my wife stay out for like 12 hours. I was like, I'm not going to go to Mets Braves. And then, of course, it was 1 out away from being a combined no-hitter. I've never seen a no-hitter in my life. I'm not regretting it the whole time, but I am checking the box score going, is this real life? Come on. Is this actually going to happen? JD Martinez busted up with 2 out in the 9th. Raisel Iglesias after the game basically says, he really didn't know that there was a no-hitter. It would have been the Braves' first no-hitter. All the things that the Braves have done, it would have been their first no-hitter, combined or otherwise, since 1994, when Kent Mercker did it. Of course, when you think iconic Braves starters of the 90s, that name is obvious. You knew it was going to be Kent Mercker. Did it surprise you that Iglesias did not quite know what was at stake? And if you were caught in that situation, if you gave up a home run and you were the last man standing, trying to put a combined no-hitter together, and you didn't know either, would you lie about it? I think I would lie about it.
I mean, maybe, but like, I see so many people getting worked up about this, and I wasn't aware of that until you ended up pointing it out to me in the rundown here. But why do you think people are annoyed by this?
I don't know. I think it's just residual annoyance at the game. I mean, they won the game, so the game was not blown. But I think they were inclined to be angry because he took history off their plate, no matter what he said. If he said, oh, I had no idea, or like, yeah, I was acutely aware and I'm mad at myself, I think they would have been like, yeah, you should be. Like, we had it, we lost it because you should be mad at yourself. I think fans are just inclined to get angry no matter what happens. But either way, giving up a home run, not just a hit, but a home run to the last batter of a combined no-hitter on the road. And then he's not available on Sunday night, and Brandon Nimmo walks him off when they're up 3-2, 2 outs to go to secure a victory in that finale. That's a tough series for Braves fans on the road at a place where I think they would call Citi Field a bit of a house of horrors, and they got 2 little gut punches there.
Oh, no, they absolutely did. They absolutely did. And I'll tell you, it's as far as Iglesias goes, like, I mean, it happens. I mean, it's okay that he didn't know that a no-hitter was going on. Like, I mean, how often, I wonder in Major League history, how often has a closer entered a game and been in a situation where he can end up saving a no-hitter? I can't imagine that's happened too much. I can't blame him. I don't know, but I don't understand people getting all worked up about it. But man, the Braves are good. The Braves are really good. That's my top takeaway from this is like, people were panicking after that Dodgers series, but they're just fine. They're fine.
Braves are going to be okay. Mets might be a little bit underrated or at least a little bit frisky. Comments before we sign off. Mentioned we did talk Skenes right up top, so it's worth mentioning that on the last show we did talk about Robert Gasser debuting as well. And ultimately, end of the day, Gasser's line was better than Skenes. Lots of complicating factors. This is not a judgment on future performance, but let's give Gasser some flowers too, because if you want to talk about who is better start one, is the guy in the brew crew.
Oh, absolutely it was. And I mean, he showed exactly why they targeted him in that Josh Hader trade. And if there's one thing that the Brewers should definitely get the benefit of the doubt with, it's pitching, because their pitching, like their ability to develop pitching both in the minors and also in the majors, is something to really be commended. And that's a credit to their pitching development guys, but also Chris Hook, who's their pitching coach in the majors, who was, in my opinion, one of the best in baseball. And really underrated and a key part of how they've been able to really develop some of these young guys. But Gasser is certainly one where the Brewers are optimistic about what he can become. And then having Freddie Peralta, who's signed to a very team-friendly deal, and then the guy who is lingering in the minors, who I've had people tell me has either got the best pure stuff in the minors or even the second best behind Paul Skenes, is Jacob Misiorowski. That guy is going to be a key part of the Brewers' long-term outlook, especially in that rotation. I would not be surprised at all if he debuts at some point this year. He is someone to be really intrigued by. And if I was a Brewers, or if I'm a Brewers fan, we said it earlier in the show that I am not a hot take guy, but I think if Misiorowski reaches his potential, we're talking about their next version of Corbin Burns. I think he's got that kind of potential.
And you're not a hot take guy. The last guy that you were that enthusiastic about was Kyle Harrison, I would say. And so far, so pretty good on Kyle Harrison. I mean, year two, 22 years old, looks like a potentially future dominant force in San Francisco. So when you say it, you mean it.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, his last start, I mean, there was a bunch of walks and his pitch count got really high up there early on. But I mean, he looks good. He looks really good. And yeah, the next guy I'm really sticking with is Jacob Misiorowski. I'm hopefully I'm the one who breaks it when he ends up debuting or gets called up. We'll see, but yeah, that's the guy that I'm really, really high on.
I'm high on him too, mostly because of you, but I am high on him. I can't wait to see him either. Before we sign off, anything else in the notebook as deadline season gets a little bit closer to just inches closer to relevance? We've had a couple consecutive shows of trade deadline chatter and informed conversations about potential targets. So we're getting there. Thank you for sticking with us, everybody, through spring training and through April baseball. And now we're getting into places where the records are a little more meaningful, the needs are a little more defined, and we can start cranking up the rumor mill a little bit. But anything else you want to touch on before we sign off?
Nope, I should be good. That's the bulk of what we had for today. We'll see everyone later this week. I will warn you, it might be a different day. This is even news to Adam.
It is. Adam, you guys can see it on my face. Yeah, you guys can see it on my face.
Yeah, it might be a different day this week. So stay tuned for that. If you're in the Discord, you will know as soon as we have that finalized. But we'll see you at some point later this week.
Yes. Thank you for joining us. Obviously, Robert, appreciate you always. Thanks everybody for making time for us, 3:30 Eastern, Mondays and Thursdays typically, but get subscribed to the YouTube channel, turn those notifications on so the bell rings when we go live and you'll be able to join us. If you miss the stream, that's a shame because it gets deleted immediately from YouTube and the audio doesn't run anywhere else. Oh, no, wait, I'm actually being told that it stays on the YouTube channel. You can watch it whenever, and it's on all audio podcast platforms as well. You don't get to see Robert and my face on Spotify. Faces, not face. We don't share one face. But you don't get to see it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. But we are up there as well. So appreciate rating, reviewing, subscribing anywhere you can. We'd love to hear from you too. If you have questions between shows, join us in the Discord. For Robert Murray, I am Adam Weinrib. Stay tuned for next show. We'll catch you when we catch it. We'll make sure to keep you posted. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.